My name is Stephen Hudson-Mairet. My age is 49, and I am a theater professor, chair of the Digital Media and Performing Arts Department. I think theater should persuade people through making them think about issues, if that makes sense. In other words, I don't think I'm here as the end-all be-all and knower of all things, but I am someone who should be able to present a controversial topic in a way that gets your audience to consider all sides. And that's where you can break down issues around social justice, is when people are actively considering and actively listening to each other. And sometimes when you're in a theater setting, you have to listen, because you're not trying to make an argument, you're just listening to the situation. And when we don't listen, that's when we get really polarized. So I think it provides that opportunity to force people to think about an issue. Well, the first thing you need to do is stop trying to persuade an audience, right? The more entertaining or engrossing of a topic, and the more you tell the story of the individual, the more persuasive the play will be. So if you go about it to try and create an opportunity to persuade someone, it's kind of going backwards. It's more, find a play that tells the story well, that might present the issue, and perform that to the best of your abilities. And through that process, you will lay the groundwork for the persuasion. But if you go about it and say, we're going to change people's mind about X, Y, or Z, you might be coming at it with a little bit too heavy hand of a process. When you're talking about any kind of social change, it's such a longitudinal kind of conversation. It's so long-term. I saw, when we did the Laramie project, there was palpable discourse on campus. When we did the Dead Men Walking, there was palpable discourse on campus. where you could see people really reflecting on all of the issues that were presented within the play. Those are two big ones. We've also had shows where people have left where you can tell they're like, I've got to think about this for a while. So for instance, we did a play a number of years ago called In the Red and Brown Water, which when we did In the Red and Brown Water, it had a strong impact on our audience, but I'm not sure I could say that it led to this change, right? You could tell that they were moved as they left the audience. So it's a harder question to answer. It's a long-term kind of impact that you have to kind of chip away at. I can hope?
Yeah, we just gotta hope that it doesn't fall.
All right. We'll not bounce the table.
Okay. Oh wow, that is dark.
My legs went numb from holding it, so.
Yeah, okay.
Whew.
Yeah, that juncture is really loose.
So sorry.
All right, I think we'll have to continue with only one
Yeah, this
video
is okay.
start. Sorry about
Not
that.
a problem.
Technology's stupid.
Okay. Are we good?
Sure, yeah.
All right. What pursuits have you made when you were young in theater and social justice? I know you talked about high school and college before. Would you mind elaborating on that a little more?
Pursuits. Well, so what's interesting is the kind of juncture of theater and social justice has been something that I took on. We took on in earnest since I joined Marquette, which was the year 2000, which is probably before all you were born, wasn't it? Nope, barely.
I was born in barely 99.
It's something that's a big. It's something that you kind of have happened throughout a lot of theater, but it really manifested itself when I got here. So, and I started, like I said, I started here in 2000. But my activities in theater, I graduated from Carroll College, which is now Carroll University out in Waukesha. I lived in England for a couple years and worked as a teacher over there. And then when I came back to the United States, I worked at the University in Waukesha, and then I went to graduate school at the University of Kansas. So I did all of it. I've just been hopping around. Taught in Indiana for a year, taught in Georgia for a year. And all of those places I would do, I did some interesting shows, some of them with kind of a social justice approach, but I would say that it wasn't until I arrived here that that it became part of what I do on a regular basis. And that includes, I'm trying to think, we did a show about Vietnam. We did a play called JB, which is a story of Job, but it has kind of deeper implications than that. Hang on a second. Are there dancers trying to come in? Yeah, they're going to come working in here now, too. Are we going to have to move? Or?
I think it would be best that we did if they're going to be making noise.
Yeah, they might be.
And my next one.
And your next one is?
Are there any other people that you know that are using theater to further social justice?
Yeah, there's a lot of people. And it varies from area to area. I know of a number of groups in, like there's some in Milwaukee. There's a number of theater companies in Chicago. There's a lot of people who do this across the country. There's like a theater training program in San Francisco that does what I would call devised theater, where they'll take an issue and they'll create a play around it. Specifically at the University of San Francisco that does it. But there's organizations that work with, like for instance, in Milwaukee, there's a group that's called Feast of Thespis, where they work with military veterans to do Shakespeare. And they also work with, Thespis does, and then there's another group that works in prisons to do various plays. And what they're using theater is to help individuals to grow using it's a form of like drama therapy. I've also seen groups that will work with different groups or individuals and help tell their story. So there's lots of ways that you can apply theater to approach an issue.
All right. Do you know of anyone on Marquette or in Milwaukee that we could talk about or talk to about the performances done through this program?
So the individual that I would, Bill Watson, who teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, is, you can ask him about his theater group, and I think it's the Feast of Thespis is the title of his group, but you'll have to ask him specifically. That's a good group to start with.
All right. Have you seen the SNL sketches that make fun of social justice theater?
I've seen. I'm not sure I'm familiar exactly with the ones that you're talking about. I've seen them, like they do ones where they make fun of like high school thespians.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure I know of the ones that make fun of social justice theater in particular.
All right. Out of your many years in theater as a performer, designer, what has stood out to you the most?
Like one performance or one event. It's really interesting. Like there's two things. One that stands out to me is not even something that I necessarily saw, but it's the story of one of our alums who studied the art of the bouffon, which is the art of the clown in a French tradition. And he, when he was working in New York, he took a summer and went and volunteered at an orphanage in South Africa and taught the art of the clown in South Africa in this orphanage. Again, to help impact lives through the art form. But some of these practices or experiences that stood out for me would have been here, the production of Dead Man Walking or the production of Laramie Project. Laramie Project was not even a show that I worked on directly, but I was able to see how it impacted our community in a way that I thought was positive at a time when it needed to be discussed on our campus, or at least start the discussion on our campus.
In Lobby Heroes, how did you use set design to convey a message?
Oh, Lobby Hero! Thank you for pulling that one out of there. So are you familiar with the story of Lobby Hero?
I'm not.
You're not?
So
Lobby Hero is about this individual who's kind of down on his luck, and he works as a doorman / security guard in a New York high-rise or New York apartment building. And as the scene designer, what I tried to do is establish a setting where this individual felt decorated, but it felt like he was lonely and alone. And so it's kind of a larger space with a guy sitting at his desk, and then all of the coloration of the set was really kind of cool and cold, and so it had that sense of the world being a colder place in juxtaposition against him, and yet it's a funny play, but there's this kind of sadness underneath it. So it's interesting because it had to be a real set, right? It had to feel like you were in a hotel lobby or an apartment lobby, but it had this coldness to it when we finished the painting and the texturing of the room.
And are there any performances or plays coming up that you have contributed to?
I'm going to be designing the set for the children's show here. We're doing A Year with Frog and Toad. I'll be designing the set for 2 shows off campus. I'm doing Miracle on South Division Street at Milwaukee Chamber Theater. I'll be doing Top Girls at Renaissance Theater in Milwaukee. And what else do I have? Our production of Pericles, which will happen in April. So I got 4 coming up as a designer.
right, those are all my questions, unless you two have anything.
Do you not have any questions?
We all.
Oh, you all contributed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, do you have anybody else we can talk to on the topic of social
And
justice?
concerning your
Yes.
productions.
Not here. That's the trick. In this, it's pretty quiet right now.
That's fine.
Did you have other questions about anything in particular to dig a little deeper, or you just need more people?
We were just wondering if
Yeah.
there were more people that we.
Yeah,
brought
so
in.
my colleague Deb, who directs, she's in Dayton, Ohio right now. My other colleague Jamie, I don't know if he's in town or not. So everybody's kind of hither and yon right now. And those two would be the ones that I'd want to talk to.
Would you mind giving us last names?
Yeah, so Deb Krajcek, Krajec, and then Jamie, his last name is Cheatham, Cheatham.
I'm sorry, could you spell that again?
Sure, Cheat, Cheat, and then Ham. So I suppose you could try and email them questions. James, I don't know how responsive they'll be. I don't know how quick they'll respond is what I mean.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And I can get pictures.
Please
of
do, yeah.